Have you ever noticed how some people seem to hold an almost mysterious influence over their surroundings without even speaking? They don't raise their voice, they don't plead. They simply pull back, and suddenly everything starts to shift. The atmosphere changes. People begin to wonder, to pursue, to feel. Now, imagine if you did the same. If instead of instantly reacting, you chose calmness. If you opted for quiet instead of your usual response. If you chose distance instead of an outburst. What do you think would happen? That's exactly where the power lies. When you stop being constantly available, emotionally, physically, mentally, the people around you begin to feel unsettled, because they've gotten used to managing you by pulling the strings of your reactions, your emotions, and your habits. But the moment you decide to pull away, the entire game changes. Those who once believed they understood you realize they never truly did. Carl Jung once said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." Now think deeply. When you become less accessible, who starts feeling anxious? Who gets frustrated? Who tries to pull you back just to get a reaction? That says more about them than it does about you. And more importantly, it reveals how you are still being controlled, without even being aware of it. You keep offering yourself, trying to satisfy everyone, trying to avoid conflict, trying to keep people close, even when, deep down, those people were never really on your side. And with every time you say yes when you mean no, every quick reply, every emotional reaction, you give away a part of your energy. And by the end of the day, what are you left with? Exhaustion, confusion, a strange emptiness you can't explain. Let me tell you why. Because you're giving too much of yourself to people who don't even deserve a moment of your silence. This isn't about abandoning the world. It's about returning to yourself. It's about learning the meaning of what Jung called individuation, becoming your true, whole self. And this journey begins the moment you understand that silence can sometimes be stronger than 1,000 words. That pulling away, when done with awareness, not fear, is a bold step of strength. So I ask you sincerely, how long will you continue to let your emotions be guided by other people's behavior? How long will you let yourself be played with like a puppet, with every push and poke dragging you into reactions? Maybe it's time to cut those invisible strings, to step back, to become a puzzle that people can't easily solve. Because when you're no longer constantly available, everything begins to shift. Since you were young, you've been trained to always be present, to answer quickly, to smile even when it hurts, to say yes just to make others happy. You were taught that your value is tied to how much you show up for others. But here's a truth you might not have heard this clearly before. Being constantly available isn't a strength. It's a silent trap. As long as you believe that you need to be open and ready all the time, emotionally or otherwise, you'll be used, drained, and easily forgotten the moment you're not useful anymore. Do you know why that happens? Because being too available makes you predictable. And when something becomes predictable, people start using it like a tool. You turn into an emotional button people push when they want attention, comfort, or validation. And when they're done, they put you right back. But you're too caught up in this loop to even see it clearly, stuck in the false hope that being there for everyone means someone will finally show up for you. But reality doesn't work like that. Carl Jung spoke about the persona, the mask we wear to fit in, to be liked, to feel important. And it's this same mask that pushes you to always be available. You smile and say everything's fine when you're falling apart inside. You reply to texts even when your body's screaming for rest. You explain yourself, justify your choices, defend your actions, like you owe it to the world. But the more you revolve around others' needs, the more you lose touch with your own. Being always available is a quiet form of abandoning yourself. It's a hidden way of chasing approval, of fearing rejection, of trying to control how others see you. But it comes with a heavy cost. The cost is your inner calm, your energy, your life force, being given out as if it's endless. But it's not. It's precious. And it's limited. People who demand your constant presence aren't truly asking for you. They're asking for what you offer: attention, support, distraction, comfort. But when you shift, when you set a boundary, when you decide not to react, those same people get upset. They say you've changed, that you're acting strange. But the truth is, you just stopped being convenient for them. Here's the harshest truth. The more you give yourself freely, the less you're valued. What is too easy to get becomes overlooked. No one truly appreciates what they never had to earn. So now, take a moment and ask yourself, who really deserves your time? Who's earned your energy, your presence, your attention? And maybe more importantly, who actually deserves your absence? But before you can answer that honestly, you need to face one important question. Why do you react so quickly in the first place? Why do you always feel the need to explain, to reply, to please? The answer lies in something Jung referred to as psychic energy. That's what we need to understand more deeply. Because your energy is all you've got, and if you don't learn to protect it, someone else will keep using it for their own benefit. Jung didn't see the human mind as just a machine responding automatically. He saw it as an energy field. Every thought, every feeling, every action takes up some of this energy. So the question becomes, are you choosing where your energy goes? Or are you just giving it away without thought? Every time you react without thinking, you waste energy. When you defend yourself from useless criticism, when you argue just to prove you're right, when you keep explaining yourself to someone who's already made up their mind, when you try to win over people who don't even see your worth, you're losing energy. And this is energy that gives nothing back. Jung said, what you resist not only persists, but will grow in size. The more you react, the more you stay stuck. People who are always tired emotionally are not weak. They're just scattered. Their energy is going in too many directions. And when you're tired all the time, you become exposed. You become easier to manipulate. People can tell when you're vulnerable. They can sense when you can't protect your energy, when you react to everything, when you try to fix every problem, and they will take advantage. Jung believed a healthy mind knows how to hold energy inside. That means learning to say no without feeling bad. It means being quiet without feeling afraid. It means watching before acting. True strength isn't in reacting to everything. It's in knowing when not to react. And that power only comes when you truly understand yourself. Think about how often you've lost sleep over something someone said. How many hours you've spent replaying conversations, trying to understand why someone treated you the way they did. That's your energy leaking away. You're feeding memories that should have faded. You're keeping situations alive that should have ended. All because you keep responding. Psychic energy is like your personal shield. When guarded, it makes you grounded and powerful. You can walk into a room and command attention without even speaking. But when it's scattered, you become invisible, shaky, and easy to ignore. The world doesn't respect those who give away their energy too easily. So start paying attention to what triggers you. What makes you respond automatically? What causes you to lose your balance? Those are the areas where your energy is escaping, and that's where you need to do the work. Not so you can become cold. Not so you can shut everyone out. But so that you can become wise, so that you can truly govern yourself. And in that understanding lies one of the greatest awakenings a person can have. The moment you stop being available to everyone is the moment everything begins to shift. People start noticing your absence, respecting your time, and realizing your true worth. Sometimes, pulling back is the only way to rise. When you conserve your energy, you begin to dismantle the assumptions that others have placed on you. And that bothers many, because now we are stepping into a shadowy area, the realm of quiet manipulation. In the next part, we will dive into how certain people feed off your emotional energy and why your absence completely disarms their tactics. Get ready to stare into the eyes of those who have drained you all along without your awareness. You think you're in control. You believe your reactions come from conscious choices. But the reality is far more subtle. Most of your emotional responses are conditioned, and those who understand this can manipulate you effortlessly. Opportunistic individuals don't need to shout, threaten, or push you. All they do is press the buttons you've unknowingly left exposed, and like clockwork, you respond. Carl Jung referred to this as projection, the mental process through which people cast onto others the parts of themselves they can't acknowledge. But there's another aspect of this that often goes unnoticed. While others are projecting onto you, you also become the container for these projections. And the more emotionally available you are, the more you become a blank slate for others to write their expectations on. You know that friend who only contacts you when they're in trouble? That partner who always relies on you to fix everything? That person who flatters you, but only while you're useful to them? None of this is coincidence. They're not connecting with who you truly are. They're relating to the version of you that fits their needs. And why do you go along with it? Because you fear being a disappointment. You're afraid of being unloved. You're scared of being left behind. The most subtle form of manipulation doesn't come through loud demands. It's in the silent pressure of guilt. It's in that lingering feeling that you owe someone something, that you must be there, must help, must understand, even if it slowly destroys your inner peace. And this is the most critical part. The manipulator doesn't need to directly control you. They only need you to keep responding in the same predictable way. But when you stop reacting, the game collapses. When you begin to say no, to remain silent, to withdraw without explanation, their projected version of you begins to fall apart. The image they've imposed on you starts to dissolve. This unsettles them. They no longer recognize you, and worse, they are now forced to look inward. Not everyone is ready to face their own reflection. Your emotional distance becomes a threat, because it makes them face the emptiness they've been avoiding. Your silence exposes the mental chaos they've been covering up. And then comes the backlash, the criticism, the drama, the emotional storms. Not because you did something wrong, but because you stopped fulfilling the role they assigned you. Jung once said, "We do not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." When you step away, when you stop feeding the cycle, the hidden parts of others begin to surface. And this becomes unbearable for people who've always used your presence as a distraction from their own issues. But now let's focus on you. Are you prepared to face the discomfort of being misunderstood, judged, or even rejected for protecting your peace? Are you ready to endure the quiet that follows this break? Because it is within that silence that a deeper kind of strength begins to emerge. And that is what we're going to talk about next. You'll soon understand why silence can be one of the most powerful forces of the human mind, and how it can entirely shift the balance between you and the world around you. Modern life is loud. Everyone wants to be noticed, to respond quickly, to win arguments, to prove their viewpoint, even if it costs them their inner stillness. But there exists a kind of power that very few recognize, and even fewer learn to use: the strength of silence. Not the silence of giving up or hiding, but a sharp, purposeful, and deeply aware silence. The kind of silence that doesn't mean you're absent. It means your presence has become more focused. Jung viewed silence not as emptiness, but as rich ground for personal growth. When you stop reacting, you start noticing. And by observing, you begin to recognize patterns that once went unseen. Emotional habits, manipulation loops, cycles that hold you back. Silence brings clarity. And clarity is threatening to those who rely on confusion to keep you close. Have you ever noticed how some people panic when you don't reply? When you don't justify yourself? When you simply remove yourself from the conversation? It's not because they miss you. It's because your silence removes their control over the story. When you speak, you're still part of their game. But when you go quiet, you change the rules. And that shakes anyone who depends on your reactions to maintain their own sense of power. True silence isn't just the lack of words. It's control over your energy. It's the refusal to be pulled into someone else's chaos. It's the wise decision to not waste your peace on battles that don't deserve it. Jung described the process of individuation, becoming your authentic self, as something that requires distance. Because only in silence can you truly hear your own voice, away from the noise of the world. But make no mistake, silence has a cost. It will drive away people who only cared about you when you played a certain part. It will confuse those who never looked at you clearly to begin with. You might be seen as distant, cold, even arrogant. But that's just the reaction of people who never truly cared about your essence, only about what you could do for them. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The more you grow, the more careful you become with your words. You understand that every word is a use of your energy, and not everyone deserves to hear your truth. Sometimes, silence isn't withdrawal, it's self-respect. It's the language of those who no longer feel the need to convince anyone of anything. Silence is unsettling because it forces others to sit with their own thoughts, their own discomfort. And that discomfort says more about them than any defense you could offer. You don't need to explain your distance. It speaks for itself. And the ones who feel shaken by your silence are the ones who relied too much on your instability to maintain their own control. But the most impactful silence isn't the one that unsettles others. It's the silence that rebuilds you from the inside. The silence that reconnects you with something deeper than approval. In that internal space, free from the demands of others, you begin to reclaim your life force. You reconnect with who you are. And that's exactly what we'll explore next. Because it's not enough to just cut out external noise. You must also learn how to manage your energy. Where it goes. Where it stays. And most importantly, where it should never be wasted again. It's time to become selective with your soul. If you're in the middle of taking your energy back and creating strong boundaries, you'll find real value in my book Beyond the Shadow. It breaks down Jung's core ideas and gives you practical tools to protect your energy, establish boundaries, and rediscover your real self. The link is in the pinned comment. There's no point in understanding all this with your mind if, in your daily life, you still say yes when you want to say no. Still reply to messages that irritate you. Still engage in shallow conversations and keep relationships alive only because it's what you've always done. Awareness without action is just another form of denial. True change begins when you make a firm choice to become intentional. And that demands emotional discipline. Being consciously unavailable isn't about being cold, rude, or dismissive. It means you're no longer open to everyone, anytime, for any reason. It means you're finally in charge of your own energy, your own schedule, your own peace. And it starts with simple actions, not replying right away. Taking a deep breath before you respond. Stepping away from a conflict before it traps you. Turning off your phone without guilt. Saying, "Not now." saying, "I'm not interested," saying, "I won't engage." But here's what matters most. You don't have to explain your distance. You don't have to justify your silence. You owe no one an explanation but yourself. And that, for many people, is the most unforgivable act of all. Because the moment you stop explaining, you take away their ability to control the story. Power can keep you trapped in an emotional story where you're always the kind, understanding, and available one. Carl Jung understood that every path to becoming your true self involves a period of isolation, but not the kind that brings sadness. It's a sacred kind of aloneness, a time to go within, where you relearn how to hear your own voice without the world's noise. It's where you start to rebuild who you are, not shaped by how others see you, but grounded in your own truth. Want a good way to measure your growth? Just pay attention to who starts pulling away when you become quieter. Notice who tries to stir you up when you stop reacting. Watch who tells you that you've changed when you finally begin to set boundaries. These aren't signs that you're doing something wrong. They're proof that you've started setting yourself free. Being less available can feel strange at first. You might feel bad. You might think you're being cold or uncaring. People might say you're being too distant. But this is all part of unlearning what you've been taught. You've spent a lifetime being trained to put others ahead of yourself. So it's only natural that real change feels uneasy, not just for you, but for everyone who once benefited from the old version of you. Deliberate unavailability is a key step toward real independence. When you say no to the world, you're finally saying yes to yourself. When you leave behind a toxic space, you're declaring that your peace is more valuable than any fake connection. And when you stop explaining your choices, you begin to earn true respect, even if it's only from a few. But not everyone is prepared for this kind of presence. Your emotional absence will start to uncover wounds that others aren't ready to deal with. It will show them how much they relied on your inner chaos to feel in control. That's when the break happens. And with that break comes pain, comes the quiet, comes the distance, the feeling that you're letting go of something. But the truth is, you're not losing anything. You're simply breaking free. So what happens after this point? What comes after the space, the silence? What rises from that stillness? That's where the real transformation begins. It's a kind of rebirth that only comes when you find the bravery to be misunderstood, to stand alone, and to become whole by yourself. That's the deeper reason why the solitude of the strong leads to real freedom. When you stop being available to everyone all the time, something powerful takes place. First, there's the quiet, an uneasy silence that feels loud in your chest. You might question your choices. You might wonder if you've gone too far. You might miss the people who once liked you. But slowly, that silence starts to shift. It begins to clean things out. It begins to bring calm. It starts to mend old wounds. And then comes solitude, not the kind that feels empty, but the kind that feels full. Full of presence. Your own presence. The solitude of someone who no longer needs to shrink or bend just to stay close to others. The solitude of someone who refuses to keep betraying their own heart. In the space where there was once noise, you now find understanding. Where there was once panic, there is now peace. Where you once felt needy, a new strength is born, the kind of strength that comes from being complete within yourself. Carl Jung once said that the journey to becoming your real self demands stepping away from the group, removing the masks, and walking alone for a while. And that's exactly what you're doing when you become less available. You're not running from life. You're returning to yourself. At this point, you stop reacting to what happens around you. You start shaping what happens from within. The people who struggle with your absence will show you something important. They never truly wanted you. They wanted the version of you that made their lives easier. And now that you're not that version anymore, they don't know how to handle it. That, right there, is freedom. Yes, you will lose people. But you will find something far more important. You'll walk away from old places. But you'll reconnect with your deepest self. People may not understand you anymore. But at last, you'll begin to earn a different kind of respect. Because when you're no longer available for everything, you start becoming something rare. Something precious. Something unforgettable. And don't mistake it. This is your rebirth. A fresh beginning. A new chapter where you're no longer accepting emotional leftovers, no longer playing games of the mind, no longer falling for emptiness dressed up as love. Now, you only welcome what aligns with your peace, your truth, and your completeness. If you've made it this far, it's because a part of you is already stepping into this new season. A part of you already knows the truth. That love means nothing if it requires you to leave yourself behind. And that real self-love only begins when you choose yourself, even if it means being alone for a while. Now tell me in the comments, are you ready to be misunderstood, judged, or even disliked for the sake of your inner peace? Are you brave enough to be fully you, no matter the cost? If this message spoke to you, if it reached a part of your heart, write in the comments, I choose my peace. Let's see how many of us are truly ready to walk this path of freedom. And don't forget, keep watching the next video. It matters more than you might think. I'll see you there.